some years ago, I was writing codes. I know what are the requirements of such a job. At the same time, we all know, because we have experienced it, during the last 2 years with the pandemic, we saw what remotely working means, remote education, etc., and how important it is for our work and for our children's education to have good telecom infrastructure. In the General Secretariat of Telecommunications and Post, in the context of the digital transformation paper, and knowing the importance of telecom infrastructure, we have proceeded in designing projects such as the submarine optic fiber cables, optic fiber to the home, and others. Of course, these are projects that will be completed in a few years ago. And as we heard in the previous panel, we need not a strategy for the next 10 years, but also short-term actions. Digital nomads constitute a special category of professionals. And the selection of their accommodation and the destination can be anywhere in Greece, coastal destination, mountainous destination, or whatever. What they opt for is to have the possibility for internet, even more than having the possibility to have a telephone conversation. So here we need to find a solution. We cannot say right now, in any place on the planet, that all over a country we have ensured fast and reliable internet. What is the solution? What we see as a solution, as a choice, is the mixture of land and satellite infrastructure. And thus we can feed innovation, entrepreneurship, and of course the society. The mixing of these infrastructures can provide connectivity everywhere, whenever they need it. So in this framework, Greece, following the decision of the ministers, decided to update the procedure for licensing and installation of new infrastructure and the adoption of a new regulatory framework for placing the standardized antennas which satisfy the safety requirements. So companies are given the possibility to provide to the consumers internet services via satellite, ensuring stable internet at fast connection with a slow response time. As Secretariat for Telecommunications and Post, we have tested such infrastructures using HellasSat, the Greek satellite. The results of these pilot tests are very, very impressive. What does that mean? It means that practically digital nomads can select any area in Greece that interests them, that they like, even if it is remote, and they can work there with a very fast and reliable internet connection. But we do not stop there. All this is in the context of the immediate short and medium-term actions that we can do. Having our eye to the future, we participate in European programs for the new generation of satellite telecommunications with the use of laser. In 2020, the European Space Agency selected our observatory in the Peloponnese, in Helmos, as the first station for receiving a sign from a satellite. In 2021, we managed to include another 2 observatories of Greece, one in Thessaloniki and one in Crete. I had the opportunity this summer to be a witness of the first communication that happened via satellite through an optic sign and telescope in Helmos, in Kalavrita, in the Peloponnese. Overcoming this part of the new telecommunications from copper to optic fiber, this new form of telecommunication, possibly during this decade, will give us the opportunity to have super fast internet connection via satellite and very high security as well. This provides a competitive advantage because there are many digital nomads whose work requires specific safety conditions, such as for instance, for those who work in the banking sector. And these requirements increase the safety of these telecommunications. I would like to conclude, because I see that we have a lot of things to say. So the General Secretariat and the Ministry of Digital Governance are in cooperation with the Ministry of Finance to see how Telecom can support this effort, this national effort, in order to integrate digital nomads, to incorporate them by advertising our country and our digital infrastructure. We want to have this asset for our country. We are certain that if we have a coordination between the ministries and with the cooperation of the private sector as regards the providers of technology and tourist enterprises, we can achieve a lot. We are sure of that. We are convinced because we have a strategy and we have started implementing it, and the results are already here. Thank you. Thank you for this presentation, Mr. Staveris. We will be with you to discuss this topic with a very, very strong panel. First, we have a very short break, and we will be back. Thank you.
Hey, you. What do you want?
I want to relax.
I want peace.
All you want is Greece. Οι άνθρωποι θαυμάζουν τα πουλιά επειδή είναι ελεύθερα. Επειδή μπορούν και πετούν και με ένα φτερούγισμα μπορούν να γυρίσουν τον κόσμο ολόκληρο. Και τα πουλιά όμως ζηλεύουν τους ανθρώπους, που το πνεύμα τους είναι ελεύθερο, που από τα πιο απλά υλικά φτιάχνουν τα πιο απίθανα πράγματα. Ονειρεμένες γειτονιές, γεύσεις που σε ταξιδεύουν, μουσικές που σε συγκινούν, έργα τέχνης που σε συναρπάζουν. Θαυμάζουν τα επιτεύγματα των ανθρώπων. Εκείνοι όμως μπορούν να τα απολαμβάνουν σε όλο το μεγαλείο τους, σε ένα φαντασμαγορικό ταξίδι που λέγεται ζωή.
Here to discuss tourism development in the digital era. I promised a very strong panel, and I have them. Mrs. Notopoulou, responsible for tourism for SYRIZA and an MP in Thessaloniki. Mr. Tsaprounis, Director of Corporate Relations in Wind Hellas, Mr. Gregory Dimitriadis, CEO of the Hyper Fund, then Mr. Theodorou, Head of Strategy and Commercial Development in Eurobank, and next to him, Mr. Konstantinos Rodopoulos, President of Metropolitan College and AKMI. Thank you all for being with us. So, we do everything from our mobile phone. We book the hotel, we pay it, we evaluate. I read that even during this difficult year, more than 150 million bookings were done via the internet, and it seems that we are reaching the era where the winner is the one who controls the biggest data volume. And I would like to start with Mrs. Notopoulou. This transition, is it something we are ready for? Are we ready to go to this digital era? Well, first of all, thank you for this invitation. It is a great pleasure for me to be here. I think this conference is very important because it puts on the agenda the challenges for today and tomorrow. The transition to the digital era must take place fast, must be done now, using all the available means and tools, supporting human resources, because this is the main capital of Greek tourism, but always having as a guideline to not let anyone behind. But the question is crucial. Are we ready to address ourselves to a digital market, the market of digital nomads? Or if we are ready to welcome this change? Unfortunately, the country has entered quite late in this era of digital transition. Only in 2016 the ministry was set up. Flagship efforts were done during our governance. Unfortunately, some projects stayed behind. For instance, fast internet. Our internet is not so fast and it's quite expensive. So how are we ready? If we talk about those who want to come to our country to work or those whom we want to bring here, then we should provide decent living on all levels, that is their life and their work. Unfortunately, the indicators for digital competitiveness, we are third from the end, that is 25th among the 27, which means that we have still a long way ahead. I remember a recent survey by MIT which showed that if we have approximately 1 million tourists, digital nomads, 100,000 who will stay for 6 months, then the income, the revenues will be equal to 1 million tourists for a week. It would be equivalent to 2 million tourists for a week. Today, we have to worry about how we respond to the challenges. Unfortunately, the applications for digital nomads are just 3,000. We have lagged behind. We need to have a cohesive plan that will utilize all tools, the public investment project budget, the NSRF, the PA that is, but it must also focus on people. Are the people ready to respond to those needs? Of course, they need retraining, reskilling. Do not put everything together because I want to have several rounds. And I want to go into this topic. We will talk about it with Mr. Rodopoulos. But since you mentioned the digital nomads, and I heard the minister before, Mr. Tsaprounis is here, and they will manage together this program. We are not the only ones who have discovered them. During the crisis, all Europe is going after them, the digital nomads. I was looking at the incentives in a Spanish city. They give them 3,000 euro per month in order for them to set up there. In Italy, they give them 44,000 euro subsidy to transfer their activities there. We have established a 50% discount in tax for 7 years, plus what you said before. Are these incentives enough? Should we do something else to bring them here, apart from the sun and the sea? which are easily sold. Well, it is impressive that although our country is very attractive in all indicators, we still remain very low in the preferences of digital nomads based on the applications. So it is not enough to have an institutional framework. I do not know whether it is enough, really. Certainly, we need to have greater investment in incentives. But another digital leap that we can do is digital touring through technologies of augmented reality, etc., achieves to promote the country for travelers who want to come to Greece. We are lagging behind in this part, and our country must invest in this. So what do we need? We need an integrated plan that will involve all the partners actively in the planning and not passively. I think it is extremely crucial. The tourism sector people must plan together with the state to enhance this too. Mr. Tsaprounis, for those digital nomads, already from April you have announced that Kalamata will become a model city, and you have implemented projects of 110 kilometers of optic fiber. Is it correct? Why did you choose Kalamata as a city, a model city? Which cities will follow, and what is the response? Mrs. Notopoulou says that we are not very popular. This is for sure. To become popular, you need to advertise your beauties, your assets. It cannot happen by itself. But I will start with an encouraging message, because the telecom sector has the privilege to see at any time how many visitors are in Greece, how many tourists. And the encouraging thing is that the data so far show that we have exceeded. We see that as speech minutes, we have exceeded 2019. Of course, the period has extended. This is a positive element, because we always must speak with facts and figures. The Greek companies and the state indirectly have high revenues. Now, about Kalamata, we have not seen, we did not carry out a study. It's just that our local shop was receiving a lot of applications by digital nomads who went to spend the pandemic in Kalamata. What did they ask for? What did they want? They wanted to have reliable internet, high-speed internet, high-speed connections, and backup. They did not want to have long-term contracts, because they move around. They do not know whether they will stay in a city for a long time. So, on a pilot scale, we adjusted some programs, and we saw that they were very popular. And going there to the discussions with the Ministry of Tourism, which embraced this idea from the very start, we decided to test in 3 cities, Hermopolis in Syros, Heraklion in Crete, and Kalamata, to do something in a more organized, more systematic way. Telecom-wise, we will have special packages to be offered to the digital nomads who will opt for these cities. We will provide them with services and products, high, very fast connection. We will provide them with backup systems. If you have a stable line of 100 or 100 megabps, you have also mobile internet in case you have a problem, in order for you to be able to carry on working. For them, this is 90% of their work. So when we see that before the pandemic, if I remember correctly, I think it was the Boston University where 7% was the percentage of digital nomads, and now in 2020 it has skyrocketed to 50%. So Greece has only to win from that. So we need to have a close cooperation between the state, with incentives, taxation, etc., and what Mrs. Notopoulou said. We need also the private sector to set up specific services and products for them, but we also need the local government. That's a very, very important thing, for the local government to simplify the procedures, to provide discounts for restaurants, etc. And this is why the pilot program announced by the minister includes a special card so that when you show this card, the digital nomads who have gone to these cities, they will be provided with specific privileges. It needs an integrated plan. That's very correct because we are the second most expensive country as regards the charges for telecom. It's only Belgium that is more expensive. I disagree on that. I'm talking with data. It's not a personal. I agree. The data show that. But since the European Union takes as granted the price list and not the real price that consumers pay through the subscribers pay, the price they pay in the end is 40 to 50% lower. We are to be blamed because we have a price list which is quite high. This is not the price given to the consumer, to the subscriber. But for sure, the European Union takes the price list.
Charges and such fees can be an incentive or a counter-incentive for anyone who wishes to be a digital nomad here. Believe you me, says Mr. Tsaprounis, given what we have, our experience of services to digital nomads show that the prices are very reasonable compared to the European average. In practice, there's proof. And so 5G, to my understanding, Mr. Tsaprounis, is not just about having access to the internet, it's so much more. It impacts directly on all of our lives and our valuable and precious tourist products. So before I give the floor to another of our guests, where are we in terms of 5G? What sort of coverage do we have? When will we get to 100%? As we speak, we are at 40%. 40% of the population is covered, and it's spreading really fast. We will need another 2 years in order for us to increase those figures significantly. But 5G should not just be synonymous or thought of as synonymous to fastest great speed. It's going to provide SMEs with solutions. It's going to provide big enterprises and professionals with solutions. It's not about having fast gaming for our children. It shouldn't be that. 5G is a novel technology. It's changing the ways in which we work, we operate our businesses. It's changing the ways in which robots are helping us carry stuff around. It's overhauling the industrial image of our country. This is how we need to view 5G. It's a revolutionary technology. We haven't seen not even 10% of its capacities materialize. We're fortunate. We are one of the first European countries to have this technology. It's going to catch up, it's going to catch on fast, and the results will be impressive. Thank you. I will come back to you because you are working on very interesting things. You're partnering with the Naked Museum. You're also carrying out digital tours. I'm not going to give the floor to the speaker next to you, but I would like to talk about digital transformation and funding. When you talk about digital transformation, Mr. Theodorou, you represent Eurobank, you need funds. Do you have a plan, sir, with a view to providing funding to enterprises and ushering in this new digital era? Thank you, Mrs. Makri, for the question, and thank you for inviting me to this conference. We clearly have a plan. And on that note, let me add something which was also mentioned by the previous panel, which said that banks are not willing to give funds. It's not unfair. Let me say this. There's no black and white in my mind, especially when it comes to small and medium-sized enterprises, which I represent. Over the past few years, we have given a total of 1.5 billion in total. This is a record-breaking figure for these years. But then again, when there's a sustainable business plan, anyone who comes with such a plan to us will get funds. So the bank ought to play the role of a consultant as well. We have to help out even those who can't be granted the loan as we speak in order for them to improve. to explain what sort of criteria they should be meeting and what they can improve. And therefore, everyone needs to work in the right manner. When you depict correctly your financial situation, you can get funds. If you fail to do so, maybe you're trying to do that on purpose, but there will be problems in the future. You have to be correct in how you enter your financial data in order for you to have amortizations, to have prospects, good prospects, and proceed with investments. And all of that is going to benefit your enterprise. As we speak, there are many tools that we can take advantage of, regardless of the size of the enterprise. There's the new government, the new development law, the RRF, the 26 billion coming from the NSRF. The problem for small enterprises is that they are not aware of what they could be eligible for, and they don't even know what sort of eligible expenses are involved. So one thing we have to do is to inform them, and then many enterprises also believe that there's a lot of red tape in drafting a business and investment plan. We can help them with that as well. There are ways to help them out. And there's another thing, funding as such. Indeed, there are funding and financing instruments available, and we can help. Bearing all of the aforementioned in mind, let me say that we have created the platform, an electronic platform. Business Checkup is its name, so you can use the platform to check whether your type of enterprise qualifies for this or that program. And so you can take advantage of respective funds, and you can talk with our branch officers and provide people with the right information in order for them to know what they can get. Mr. Theodorou, you're talking about the financial situation of any company, and I do realize that sometimes they are not depicted in the right manner in order for you to find this attractive or convincing, but there are many who would like to establish their own startups. They would like to have digital technology and use it. So you see, it's a matter of efforts that need to be made. Can you provide people with the right boost? Can you support them by providing them with the right capital? Or is it too risky for you to reach out? This is to the essence. This is an excellent question. Thank you. We've worked on it. This is not just part of our planning. We're doing things in practice. We have been doing things, practical things in recent years. Maybe you've heard about our own incubator. We established it with Coralia. We are currently working on a 6th cycle of such business ideas. We host such ideas. We allow scope for them to materialize. We are training people, especially university graduates. We educate them about how they can set up their own enterprise, how they can promote the product, what they can do. Each and every year, we have about 20 such groups trained and educated. I could give you examples about the money, that is the funds that have been granted to these teams from funds from abroad. And the most recent example I have in mind is people, young graduates from the National Technical University of Athens. They produce something that allows the tractor to scan the soil in order for decisions to be made automatically about the quantity of fertilizer. There's the Action Finance Initiative that we work with, and so we grant amounts up to 15,000 euros without any collateral or guarantees to young girls and boys who have come up with their own business idea and will want to make it happen. So indeed, there are incentives, and there are ways to fund incentives that are not limited by a strict set of criteria that will apply in the case of bigger enterprises. Thank you. I will be coming back to you yet again. Now over to Mr. Dimitriadis. Mr. Dimitriadis, I would like to talk about digital technology with you, but unfortunately, when it comes to tourist real estate in the public sector, we're really lagging behind, so much lagging behind that we don't know as we speak what is remarkable, what is worth taking advantage of, what is commercially interesting. So we're talking about biometrics and smart hotels and smart real estate. It all sounds crazy, but it's happening in Greece. So what is your plan? What's your plan on utilizing all of that? I heard that you have the ski resort of Panos. You also include amongst your assets various spas. And as we speak, we could be, if the situation had been different, we could be talking about different things. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you, Mrs. Pirioti, Mr. Hadjinikolaou. Indeed, this is a digitally oriented discussion, but we have to be physical as well. This is hybrid, this is phygital after all. At the level of our hyper fund, we have Festos, that's a fund for 5G. I could give you some info about it later, but what you were asking about makes sense.
Real estate στο δημόσιο.
The public sector has its own real estate assets. It's a lot of real estate. A big chunk, indeed, is in the hands of our hyper fund. It's mostly ETA and other big companies like IOSE. Real estate owned by IOSE. The Greek railway, there is the Panos army camp, or the rail station of Peloponnesos, and there's part of PPC, part of the water company, and so on and so forth. So obviously we have to acknowledge that we have a certain picture of what the current state of affairs is for certain pieces of real estate, but not for everything. So we are drafting, or rather we've reached the final stages of approving our master plan, which will be implemented as of next year. So we have to know what it is we have in our hands and what the worth of it is. So in collaboration with the private sector, we will be opening this up in order to have partnerships, a partnership that will help us proceed with the valuation of all our assets, that is all of our real estate, in order to categorize them. Some may be more useful for industrial use, others may be useful in the tourist industry. We want to proceed duly. We will not wait until the end to see what we have, but it's important to know exactly what we have in our hands in terms of assets, and what can be used will be used first. I really don't know whether the public sector, that is the government, will be exploiting that. I guess you will be assigning the exploitation of these assets to private entities. Yes, and remember, you put me amidst the private sector. This goes to show that we as a hyper fund are there to cater to the needs of the public sector, but we would like to, and indeed we're working on the basis of private economy criteria, and therefore it's clear that what we have in our hands that needs to be taken advantage of will be taken advantage of using the private sector. Just like you said, we have the ski resort of Panos and spas, everything in close collaboration with the Ministry of Tourism and Mr. Kikili as the Minister, and also in conjunction with the National Tourist Organization of Greece. We're going to take advantage of everything. We are also conversing as we speak with investors, be it foreigners or Greek ones, to properly develop them. And what about the timeline? How long will it take? And you have to know what you have exactly. It looks like or sounds like a joke, but you don't know what you have. You want to know what it's worth. How long will it take for you to know? The hyper fund, or SYP in Greek, has an advantage. Our mandate does not depend on elections or electoral circles, so we're going to do this right. Sometimes there was or there is a certain pressure. You have to give us the figures by that time, but this is not working. That is why, in our case, and according to the plan, we have a 3-year strategic plan, and the first year thereof, that is 2022, will be the basis year for us to proceed. And we all know very well that we have a certain window of opportunity. It's very specific. The economy is doing very well. We have been receiving very positive messages from investors. We've scored successes. Nationalis, for instance, DEPA infrastructure in Dalgas is another set of successes. Then this Karamagas shipyards, the PPC's capital increase. So there is a very positive momentum as we speak, and we can't be certain about how long this will be like that. So it's critical for us to have measurable results and specific KPIs, which we will be announcing very soon once we have the approval of a strategic plan, in order for you as journalists to check on us, to audit us, if you will, to see what we can do during our basics year. That's very important, says Mrs. Makri. Thank you. I'll be coming back to you. Over to Mr. Rodopoulos now. Mr. Rodopoulos, you are at the core of education, and this is the most important thing. So the digital transformation, can it happen without digital education? Mrs. Makri, I'm very pleased because of two things today. I'm very pleased and happy to be taking part in this as a speaker. And I am happy to be representing the biggest educational entity in Greece. I saw young people upon entering this meeting. I saw AKMI students. They are studying to become professionals in the tourist industry, and I'm very happy. And this is quite telling, and it shows that there is the need of these young people to go outside of the so-called digital environment in order for them to be in touch, direct touch with the people who are positioned strategically and play a leading part in the field of politics, tourism, the economy. This is critical to me, and I think this is the response to Next is Now, which is next to the title of this meeting. This is a happy message, despite the dire circumstances because of the pandemic, especially of the past 2 years. The situation is dark, but this is hopeful to me and quite positive. The digital era in the field of education and training is already here. It happened yesterday. It's a thing that we knew we needed because of the pandemic. Imagine this, in a big group of educational entities, we had 1.5 million digital education hours materialize over the past few months and years. This is what we did. If you had checked with me a few years ago and asked me whether we could be any entity like ours who would be able to provide 1.5 million hours of digital training to anyone, I would have said it's a pipe dream. But it was made possible. So education and training is a field that is ready for the digital era. There's proof of this matter because our organization rose to the occasion and indeed catered to the needs that emerged as they emerged. This was catalytical for me. And students. Maybe in the digital environment they were not socializing as much, but then again, thanks to the digital environment, our students were able to deal with what our era called for. The times were so critical. So next to health, we tried to salvage the educational product as such, because we are also producing products. Don't think of us as something that's not productive. We don't have machines, but we have minds and brains that generate knowledge. This is what we're doing. This is my response. You know what's really unfortunate or saddening? For years now, many years now, we've been talking about the fact that Greece should have the most reputable tourist and academia in Greece, maybe the most renowned university for tourism, especially if not in Europe, at least in this corner of the world. We don't have such a university. We have many different fragmented entities, but we don't have one single product. And we would like to change this, possibly see what is possible for us to do in order for us to have students who will be appealing and inviting others. You are determined to hurt me. This is hurtful to everyone. You're not the only one. This is very difficult. To treat this wound is difficult, says Mr. Rodopoulos. I will give you a very, very brief answer. During the 1980s, if you talked about a potential Greek student studying in Cyprus, it would have been a joke. In the 90s, this is not a racist comment, but back in the 90s, we were joking and there was no such thing as an Albanian tourist. But today, the situation is totally reversed. Cypriot students used to come to Greece to study back in the 80s. Now there's been a shift. Greek students are going to Cyprus to study. We have about 12,000 youngsters who are studying abroad in Cyprus, to be exact. Let's not talk about how many Greek students are studying abroad in Romania and Bulgaria. And let me not talk about the very developed countries in the West. In the States, for instance, on the UK, we have thousands and thousands of Greek students studying there. The Western universities, the Western world universities always received traditionally Greek students. But now I'm talking about other countries who are lagging behind in terms of development and growth, but still we are sending Greek students there. So Cyprus, Bulgaria, and Romania are now, as we speak, having 22,000 Greek students study there. Then I guess this goes to show that there's something that we didn't do well. What is it we didn't do well, Ms. Notopoulou? Why is it that people working in the tourist industry don't have the right digital skills? Well, listen, says Mrs. Notopoulou, there's no doubt in my mind that the education and training of people, especially as concerns acquisition of digital skills, is what we would like to have. It's not just wishful thinking that we hear about time and again quite often. What is missing, I think, is a strategy, but there's also political relation that's missing. You know, digitalization of the tourist industry and also innovation in the tourist industry are two trends which are moving together in parallel, and they are helping us pick up speed and develop the product really fast. I think it was mentioned before, and you said something that is really important. Young people in startup enterprises, startups and the young people, this is critical. So we have to look into how it would be possible over the next few months and years to not just have all these people consume ready-made digital solutions and products. We would like to have them create their own products and services. Of course, this could call for a change of tack, especially on the part of the state, alongside with the various academia, be they private and public, in close collaboration with the relevant stakeholders, that is the tourist industry, in order for us to make sure that this digital gap no longer increases. The digital gap was obvious during the pandemic, and you could see it. And let's be honest, no employer would like to lose their working staff and the precious experience they have. So I guess all employers would like to allow their workers to train and acquire new skills, but we can't have people who are not being paid while they're being trained. I think that this is critical. That is, we have to deal and manage with destinations in a holistic manner. We can no longer keep talking about transitioning over to a sustainable and new model. What is that? When you talk about infrastructure, then you have to talk about knowledge, digital, physical, and other infrastructure, including the resilience and the adjustability of infrastructure. We don't just need more infrastructure, we need specialized stuff. We need to make sure the local communities live a better life. Thank you, Mrs. Notopoulou. Let me also thank the students of the Tourist Department of the Ministry of Tourism and the AKMI students.
I'm saying it now, since we're talking about this serious part of education. Thank you, and we hope that it's useful what we are saying today. So I would like to ask you for very brief answers. But I want to ask you, what is this touring and this video, 360 degrees video, with 5G? How can you find yourself somewhere where you're not there, etc.? Well, all the cultural sites of the country do away with the logic of the guard that they are shut down at 4 o'clock, etc., and they become digital. We used a new technology through 5G, augmented reality technology, fast internet, with the incredible exhibition, which is over, unfortunately, the incredible exhibition for the 200 years of the Greek Revolution at the Benaki Museum. The final product, when someone is in Alaska, for instance, and he sees that these things exist in Greece, it is impossible for him not to come and see them live. So this transforms the cultural product of the country. It becomes immediately available all over the world. And we're just at the beginning. The technology is advancing at such a pace. This train of digital revolution is so fast that we should not miss our stop. Of course not. And since we want to see them during wintertime and go in the summertime, and we want visitors to come, Mr. Dimitriadis, what are you going to do with the 22 regional airports? Will you do the same thing as with the 14 airports of Fraport? Will we have the development of the other airports? Yes, exactly. The case of Fraport shows the success that the private sector can offer in the management and operation of the airports. We have the Kalamata Airport, where we have a pilot case for 5G in the country. We are advancing it. We believe that the tender will be launched in 6 to 7 months. We have the remaining 22 airports. We are expecting in the coming weeks to receive a study regarding the best model to use this, to enhance these airports, to break them down in clusters, possibly with PPPs, and also some airports that have some special characteristics. For instance, in Neanchialos, where it could be connected to the cargo trains for logistic reasons. So we believe that by the end of the year, we will have the plan to develop these 22 airports that are important for the physical part, so that tourists can come and not remain only in the digital touring, as Mr. Tsaprounis said. This is the first step. We want to have the second step as well. As I said, yes, the 5G, we have the Festos Fund, which is intended to develop 5G technologies as a whole. But on a pilot scale, we can have these operations to be used. Thank you very much. I want to go to Mr. Theodorou. The study of April, which stated that maybe we may need 4 years to recover the losses of the pandemic. Have you revised the study carried out in April? Are you more optimistic about the time? Well, these are analyses carried out by the Economic Studies Department. Commercially, I can tell you what we see from our customers, because we are always talking with them. The estimates for this year are quite optimistic. This was also mentioned in the previous panel. So I cannot tell you about the final figure, but I see that there is some optimism, and our direction is that we should help all hoteliers and all those involved in the tourism sector to enhance the available tools, and there are very many, in order to proceed to the investments that are needed and to proceed to a digital era, to the smart green hotel, and upgrade our tourist product. Thank you very much, Mrs. Notopoulou, Mr. Tsaprounis, Mr. Dimitriadis, Mr. Theodorou, Mr. Rodopoulos. Thank you for your interest. We will have the very experienced colleague, Konstantinos Robotis, with a very interesting session, infrastructure, policies, and incentives for attracting investments.